Hello everybody. Welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing fantastic. Hope you're all doing great and that you're all having an absolutely wonderful day. Don't forget to follow me on social media. There are links in the description below. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Kind of more of the same things. It's always a good day when we're constantly getting a lot of optimistic, good cryptocurrency news. Analysts and investors are no, they are directly on the exact same page. The idea being, if you missed the last 2 weeks of videos, more or less, that's kind of when the optimism really began. It's basically that we are in the, I don't want to say the final stages, but that's what one of the analysts stated. Basically that we are now at the point where we get like the really big parabolic movements up in price until usually we get to around winter time within the cryptocurrency market. There's also a lot of, you'll notice some patterns in the news. I don't know where a lot of people keep getting these ideas from. Maybe I'm missing something going over the news every single day, but there seems to be a large bit of a disconnect between like the insanely wealthy and what people actually want. So that's going to be something very fascinating. This made very popular news today. A very well-known investor by the name of Bill Miller basically discussed where he sees a lot of trends and things going within the cryptocurrency space, where money's going to be moving. And apparently a lot of people liked it for some reason. We have turned the corner once again. And everyone's mentioning gold. I don't know why everyone's constantly talking about gold, not gold's price going up or subsequently going down. But it's this idea that I keep seeing from these like hedge fund managers and CEOs. Maybe it's the way that they talk to each other. I couldn't tell you. There's constantly this idea of comparing Bitcoin to gold. And gold's going to do this, but Bitcoin's going to do this. And gold can do that, but Bitcoin can do... And it's like, okay, like we get it. Like one is a metal and one is, numbers. So, okay. During an exchange on CNBC, Bill Miller observed that U.S. supervision of digital assets, stablecoins, most of all, the rich people are obsessed with stablecoins right now because they're waiting for like proper legislation to go through in the United States so that basically they can launch 1,000 of them. This is all they really, really care about at this point. This is basically, if you want to know what it is, they figured out that Tether made more money than any of them could have ever done. So now they're trying to get in on the game as well. But they're doing it in a really weird way where they're trying, you'll see like there's some other very fascinating stories coming up. And they think that like that's going to be the thing that makes them richer, not realizing that they're all trying to launch the exact same thing. Stablecoins, most of all, remain in its early chapters. He cited the Senate's inability to advance a stablecoin measure as evidence of regulatory ambiguity, yet portrayed the setback as a moment that could steer policymakers towards clearer rules. The only people who want these stablecoin laws and rules and regulations are people who are trying to make their own stablecoins rules and regulations, trying to push other companies out of the way. There's a little photo right there. Miller's credibility stems from his value investing pedigree and his early vocal embrace of Bitcoin, which he began buying. He was buying Bitcoin back in 2013 and later championed publicly in 2015 as a logical holding for patient capital. If you didn't hear my emphasis on those exact words. This comes from the fact that we found out around 2018, 2019 that all these rich people got into crypto in 2014. I don't know why that was the year. I haven't been able to figure it out. Maybe there was some big conference, rich people meeting or something like that. But for some reason, 2014 was the year when they all jumped into it. By the time I started this channel, a hefty portion of the news back then was about Jamie Dimon and Warren Buffett. And I mean, this CEO, this billionaire, all talking negatively about crypto. And I said in multiple videos, I think they all own Bitcoin. I don't think this guy, I do not remember saying Bill Miller's name. But back then, I remember saying, I was like, the only reason they're talking negatively about it is because they're probably buying it. And then year after year, we kept on hearing more and more billionaires who were like, oh, actually, you know, we always liked Bitcoin. Like, we always knew it would like make it. And it's like, yeah, you were all lying to the public so that they couldn't buy because you realized how rare that it actually is. He noted that federal agencies, including the Federal Reserve, have relaxed certain earlier constraints. For instance, dropping guidance that forced banks to alert regulators before providing crypto custody. Miller said Bitcoin continues to prove its mettle and might even surpass gold as a store of value. It's really weird. It's kind of, remember, like, okay, same exact conversation. Unless you're really obsessed with something, you won't talk about it all the time. Every single time that we had a CEO go on stage, talk about Bitcoin and how bad it was, it only reinforced my knowledge that these people were definitely buying up Bitcoin in some sort of way. Like, think of something that you don't like. Do you walk around telling people every single day that you don't like that thing? Because if you do, it means that you're actually obsessed with it and you actually do like it. That, like, this is how human psychology actually ends up working. So there's some really weird thing behind the scenes where they're all like constantly talking about gold and like Bitcoin usurping it. I haven't figured it out. He said, and I quote, "It's back in the six figures with a lot of room to go. If you compare its primary functional use case, which is actually a check and a balance on a lack of accountability and fiat unit creation, we still have a long way to go," he said. You all know what's coming. He said, so gold is a $20 trillion market cap. Bitcoin is still $2 trillion. Despite functional superiority to gold, it's much harder to steal, much easier to move, much easier to instantly transport, and more importantly, you can actually audit it. End quote. That was, this guy's been at, remember, this was about 10, 11, 12 days ago. I said you can always tell when someone's been in the market for a while because they talk about very specific things. They talk about actually caring about decentralization. They mention many times the things surrounding gold. A lot of it has to do with being able to transport it. If you were into XRP around 2016, early 2017, remember what Brad Garlinghouse, I mean, it was so ridiculous. I don't know if he didn't know that the internet existed and we could see what he was saying over and over. Brad Garlinghouse used to go on the news daily and talk about, well, you know, if you're trying to transport like 3,000 tons of gold, you need a plane. But if you have 3,000 tons of XRP, you know, price-wise, it happens instantaneously. And the first time he said it, people were like, wow, that's true. Yeah, you know, you don't have to get onto a plane with a whole bunch of metal. You can have a ledger. The next day he was like, you know, if you're trying to like move money around the world, you don't have to worry about like having a plane or like a boat. You can just have your XRP. And I was like, oh, okay, he's just reiterating. By the 38th time, I was like, please, can you please stop? Like, we get it. We understand that like a ledger and XRP is so much faster. Please just stop the madness. This is how you can tell this guy has been here for a while. It's this idea of moving money around. we are more used to this idea of like numbers on a screen and things kind of moving quickly and rapidly. You know that years ago, people had to like actually, and it still happens in many cases, like move money around on like barges and like on ships and actually on planes. That's just, I mean, this is just how things actually used to be. It's the same exact thing with having to like pre-fund accounts for, what are they called? The thing where the people send the money, what's the thing that's in like every single, you know, the money manager. I'm going to remember the name in like 3 minutes and it's going to drive me absolutely insane. The thing where you send the money, like you walk into a physical MoneyGram, nailed it. MoneyGram and Western Union. You had to have pre-funded accounts. And that was like one of the first actual like use cases for crypto, being like, we don't have to pre-fund an account with Philippine pesos. We can just use cryptocurrency instead. And also the idea of auditing it, because for those of you who don't know, banks don't actually have all the money that they say that they have. And we found that out in 2008, 2009 very clearly. Miller noted that auditing Fort Knox's gold would demand 44,000 labor hours, and it would take 18 months, whereas a government reserve held in a handful of auditable Bitcoin addresses could be verified by anyone instantly on a blockchain explorer. I'm going to give you some old words here, as I've been in the market for a while. This was one of the things that was touted as going to happen in the future. So you know how like I was telling you before, like Andreas Antonopoulos and these other people basically were, I don't know if they were time travelers, but they were basically wizards of some sort, and that they kind of like spelled everything out. So it's one thing for someone to be like, yeah, Bitcoin's going to be used, or yeah, at some point we will see a $5,000 Bitcoin. They were saying stuff like, well, at certain points, we're going to have smaller countries getting into it who are going to become richer than larger countries who are then going to be forced to get into Bitcoin. It was like very specific kinds of things. One of the things that they said would come true in the future is that we, the public, would properly be able to audit exactly how much Bitcoin and therefore money a government actually has. This is important because governments lie like all the time. So you can put on a balance sheet that, you know, A, B, and C, but no one actually has access to that information. So we kind of have to take you at your word or kind of go through a slew of data trying to figure out exactly what your GDP actually is, or how much growth or lack of growth your government actually had. If we can see, this is one of the things, like when you talk about the actual like a US Bitcoin exchange, it should be a public address. It should be something that like we are told like, hey, this is the wallet address. Because we'll be able to see at any given time exactly how much Bitcoin they have, how much Bitcoin they're moving around. This is why, you know, when we talk about sometimes about El Salvador, we know exactly how much Bitcoin they bought, where the addresses are. It's a very fascinating thing because there is no like auditing. There is no real like governmental accountability. There's no accountability from banks. This is why you also see this like rush of these banks trying to make their own stable coins and stuff like that, because they're not on public ledgers. They're not on public blockchains. So yeah, fascinating times ahead. This was very popular. I assume Bill Miller plus Bitcoin plus the market has a long way to go. If you've missed any of the last couple of videos, the current numbers reside around $250,000 per Bitcoin, all the way up to potentially hitting $500,000 over the course of this cycle. But very few analysts have said 500,000. It's more of the Uber Bitcoin bulls. Yeah, that's the gold, Bitcoin, transportation, labor, Fort Knox news. And yeah, let's move on. Also well, it begins kind of news. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I told you it was going to happen, and now it's starting to happen. 21 Capital. 21 Capital is a company that was forged by Tether and two other companies who had really wacky names, who basically announced that they were going to make a new company called Capital 21 with Jack Mallers as the CEO. You might remember I lost my mind in that video, where basically they announced that they're going to do what MicroStrategy is doing, but on like a 10x basis. And the entire point of the company is to buy more Bitcoin, nothing else. They basically will be creating equity, and through their shares and through securitized investments, they will be raising money. And all of that money that they raise will simply be going into Bitcoin, because the entire point of the company is to raise their BPS, their Bitcoin per share. 21 Capital has added another 4,812 Bitcoin to their treasury after a fresh purchase by their biggest backer, Tether, ahead of a planned special purpose acquisition company merger on the 9th of May. Tether acquired the Bitcoin at an average price English of $95,000 per coin and transferred the assets to an escrow wallet, as revealed in a 13th of May filing with the US SEC. It begins. This is a company, I think they started out with 42,000 Bitcoin, unless I'm mistaken. I believe that was the number that they started out with. Their plan is to get to $500,000 to $1 million Bitcoin by the end of this year. They're probably going to end up doing it. This is very similar to how MicroStrategy started. They started with several thousand Bitcoin purchases. This is what I was telling you before, when we usually get MetaPlanet in the news. A lot of time MetaPlanet will have acquired 118 Bitcoin, 75 Bitcoin. The really intense Bitcoin maximalists start out in like the thousands, and then eventually we'll get to the tens of thousands. So yeah, I don't know what that was. Something just slammed. Why not? We are going to continue to see the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges continue to drop. We are going to see the amount of millionaires and billionaires buying up all the crypto increase. So just always keep that in mind. That's the 21 Capital news. And yeah, let's move on. Also in the news, can any of you guess what this is going to be? I would say I would give you a cookie, but I don't have any cookies, and I don't think I can digitize them. Can any of you guess remotely what this is going to be? Remember how I told you, once we heard from Capital 21 and what they were doing, that everyone else was also going to come out of the woodworks and basically announce that they're going to be doing the exact same thing. If you missed a news story about 5, 6, 7 days ago, Michael Saylor said, he didn't suggest, he said, no, this is going to happen. He said the problem is that MicroStrategy has done incredibly well for themselves, and every other company also wants to do well for themselves. He said a really simple way is that companies, he didn't call them zombie companies, but it was something like, alluding to this, basically saying that there are a lot of companies that like no one really wants, or people have kind of forgotten about that. He said there's 12,000 major companies out there that people over the last decade or so have kind of just, stopped talking about it. They're not like a hot investment point. He said, if you want to get back in the news, if you want your stock to go back up, if you want your valuation to go up, if you want to get richer, you buy Bitcoin. Healthcare service provider Kindly MD has merged with Bitcoin native holding company Nakamoto Holdings, and they're going to be building a Bitcoin treasury. This is the 6th or 7th company that we're hearing about in the last, I believe, 3 weeks. According to a 12th of May announcement, Nakamoto Holdings A new company founded by David Bailey, a crypto advisor to Donald Trump, plans to build the first global network of Bitcoin Treasury companies in partnership with Bitcoin Inc. And Bailey said, traditional finance and Bitcoin native markets are converging. The securitization of Bitcoin will redraw the world's economic map. We believe a future is coming where every balance sheet, public or private, holds Bitcoin, end quote. Oh boy. So let's see. May, June, July, August. At this rate, I assume we're going to have 20 to 25 companies as we're getting to the middle or end of August. There are probably a lot more companies who are probably discussing these things behind the scenes as to if they're going to actually do this, but a lot of them are running out of time. One of the most important things that even cryptocurrency investors have to learn every now and again, and many people will learn, is that these people aren't waiting. There's a really weird misconception that institutions don't buy when prices are lower. That makes no sense. This is usually when, of course, they're buying. There's also another weird misconception that corporations and companies and institutions and countries don't buy when prices are moving up. That's also nonsense. If these people are expecting a $3 million Bitcoin, $115,000 is a bargain. They're not waiting for a dip because every other company is also not waiting as well. We are going to continue to hear more and more companies popping up as a way to literally make themselves richer. If you acquire Bitcoin now and it goes up by 10x in price, the valuation of your company, especially stock-wise, is going to do exceptionally well. Please understand when I say there's not a lot of Bitcoin left. I'm not trying to hype anyone up. I'm not trying to I'm speaking in plain English to let you understand what's actually happening on this planet. We're witnessing de-dollarization. We're seeing people move away from a lot of traditional assets. We had news back in 2019 and 2020. A lot of hedge funds back then were already selling their positions in gold. Do you know what they were buying? Of course you know exactly what they were buying. So yeah, this is another company. I don't know what they're calling themselves. Maybe they're just, it says a merger, but maybe they're just only going by Nakamoto Holdings at this point. Who knows? That's the another one news. And yeah, let's move on. This is part of what I was talking about in the I'm slightly confused news, as far as there seems to be, and I mean there probably always will be, when you have excessively wealthy people, there really is no logical connection to normal people anymore. It's not being mean, it is just completely true. They hang out in completely different circles. There seems to be this idea that we, the public, are really like salivating for stablecoins. We just can't wait to get our hands on them. We had a news story a week ago. What country was it? It wasn't France. There was another one. Some other country announced that for public services, for trains and buses, the metro, and paying your taxes, that the public could pay in Tether. And in that video, I was like, well, it's crazy because normal people aren't holding Tether. And furthermore, no one wants to swap their money into Tether when they can just send a bank transfer or send something through their phone or through their computer screen. Then there was another thing. Was it from MasterCard? I don't remember what it was, but there was some other thing where they basically, oh no, it was an airline. It was an airline announcing, I think it was Bermuda Air, like Bermuda Air, announcing that people could now pay for their flight tickets in crypto. And they said, we're starting out with Tether and we're going to add the Circle coin. And I was like, nope, that's still not it. And then there was a city somewhere not this one, but another one, who also announced, everyone, we accept crypto. We think it's awesome and amazing. So starting from today, everyone can use stable coins in our city. And I was like, no, that's not at all what's going on. This is frustrating and weird because it's what happened back in 2017, 2018. There were like a lot of like government surveys, and I don't know who. I do not know who they were surveying, but they were literally asking these people, or rather, and I'll give it to you this way. The governments came to the conclusion that the reason why Bitcoin was popular is because people wanted a form of digital money. That's where we first had the original discussions of CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. It was because governments were like, well, we're in the future and people want digital money. Everything else is digital, so let's give them a digital dollar. And it's like, no, you're once again missing the gigantic point that fiat is terrible and people are trying to get away from fiat. And this is why a lot of people are getting into crypto, especially in like Latin America and in Africa and in Southeast Asia, because their currencies are inflating by like 80% per year. So this is another really weird disconnect. This made very popular news, but it also is not at all what the public is asking for. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Dubai apparently, like the city of Dubai, as far as I'm understanding, has partnered with the website called Crypto to accept crypto payments for government services, advancing their cashless Dubai strategy and fintech goals. Okay, sure. Dubai is stepping up its game in digital finance. In a major move, the government has partnered with crypto to allow residents and businesses to pay for government services using cryptocurrencies. The news was announced at the Dubai FinTech Summit, where the deal was formalized between Dubai's Department of Finance and the website called Crypto. The system will use crypto's wallet infrastructure to process payments, converting crypto into their local currency before sending them to government accounts. How do I say this nicely? I think it's cool that we're seeing cryptocurrency adoption. I think it's really weird that this idea of like first adoption comes through like taxes, as far as like people being able to pay for like pancakes in crypto. I don't specifically know why. Maybe it's because I don't run a city or a country that I can't really get it. But it's this, you understand like the disconnect that I'm talking about, right? It's this really weird, like, just simply say that all things can be paid for in crypto. But the problem is that like it would also then harm the local currency, which is what they don't want to happen, because usually a lot of governments don't actually. So anyway, while the exact cryptocurrencies accepted weren't named, the statement confirmed that stablecoins would be used to ensure smooth and secure transactions. The feature will go live once technical integrations are complete. It's not bad news, but it's also this, kind of different thing. So I would assume in this case, if the crypto is, I don't know, cool. I get this was also popular news. Dubai has kind of recently, not last like 2 or 3 years, also been very like friendly to crypto, especially like similar to Brazil. A lot of things being passed, a lot of laws, a lot of like, thumbs up as far as like, what's the word? No ambiguity. Like, yes, you can do this. No, you cannot do that, as opposed to what Gary Gensler was doing. But stable coins aren't what people are asking for. No one cares about stable coins except for like governments and companies and corporations who are looking to make their own so that they can get the transaction fees from the actual transactions. But there's not one person I know who's like clamoring to invest in stable coins. It's It's actually not a thing. Anywho, that's going to do it for this video. I do hope that you've all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever the heck you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting, and I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.